Welcome to the Pre-Approved Podcast. I am Adam Zock with Set Your Rent. Today I have the pleasure to bring in Shiloh. Shiloh, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So Shiloh is a child and family therapist and a real estate investor. He lives with his beautiful wife and 5 amazing kids in Gilbert, Arizona, and he's done over 170 properties over the last 4 years. And so today what we really wanted to talk about is we connected and Shiloh said, you know what, there's a couple good examples of maybe 2 properties where somebody got into the home with the lease option and then was able to refinance over a period of, X number of months or years. And allowing listeners to kind of understand the story and, back and forth on what that looked like and how you helped them, Shiloh, I feel like would be a really good beginning, middle, and end for where people are on this lease option journey if they choose to go down this route. Some people like renting, some people like lease option, some people, if they can get a bank loan, they go straight to that. But specifically, can you share maybe the beginning sources of how someone initially found you to potentially be doing a lease option in the first place for either one of these 2 homes?
Yeah. So we started doing the lease options back in 2017 is when we started. And since then, we've had 3 people exercise the lease options. So I'll kind of go over, their different situations and give you some insights into each of those 3 people.
That would be great.
So one of the properties we purchased in a small city called Eloy, Arizona. It was actually a very beautiful home, and it was a large home. I think it was around about 3,000 square feet. And the city itself is not a beautiful city. No offense to anybody that might be from Eloy, but not a very beautiful city. It's a small city. And basically, we bought this property because we got it for a really, really good deal. And we got it for, I think it was either 87 or 78. I think it was $78,000. And we put about $35,000 into the property. So our total in after carrying costs and everything was about $120,000 to $130,000. Okay. And at the time, and this was back in 2017 when we bought it. At the time, it was a unique property. There weren't other properties around it that were that nice. And so the appraised value would have been probably around $200,000. And my buddy is an appraiser. And so he's good at determining value. And so he looked at all the properties and he said, you know what, this property is probably going to be around 180 right now, but I think we can lease option it for about 200. So that's what we did. We did a lease option for 200. We had somebody come in with, I think it was $6,000 down in order to be able to buy that property for $200,000. Okay. And so we locked them in. And then they lived there and they rented the property from us for, I think it was coming up on 3 years. Okay. And they had the option to buy it. Go ahead.
If I could interject, what was their monthly payment, if you recall, per month for about this $200,000 property that they were in?
Yeah, the monthly payment was, I think it was $1,550 a month.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so we're renting out for about $1,550. Now that was roughly about $100 more than what we would probably be able to rent it out for. And that's what we usually do. We usually rent our properties out for about 100 more than what the property would, what the market would say it's worth at that time, okay? So we rented it out to them and they lived there for several years and they reached out to us saying, hey, we really wanna buy this property. And so we worked with them and helping them be able to get the property. And the way that we did that is I actually put the husband on one of my credit cards as an authorized user. And I did that in order to boost his credit score because his credit score was, I think, okay, but he wanted to be able to bring it up higher so that he could get the loan on the property. So adding somebody to a credit card that you have, but not really giving them access to the credit card, what happens or what can happen is it can show that they have more available credit and that they have a line that's been a really good line that's been paid on and has a big credit limit. All of those things are going to help boost their credit score. And so we did that, and I believe it did help his credit score go up. And then I also connected him with one of the bankers that I've been using that helps with residential loans. And so I was able to coordinate that and kind of help walk him through the process. Now, the experience is a little bittersweet, and let me explain why. It's bittersweet because it worked and he was able to buy the property, and that was the sweet part. The bitter part a little bit was that we experienced so much appreciation, like appreciation that you wouldn't have even thought was going to happen, because we usually will price the property about 7% higher than the current market value when we do the lease option. Except this property actually appraised at 300 and what was it? I think it was $370,000 or $375,000.
Oh my. So
So he was able to
let's
walk
yeah.
into about $175,000 of equity when he exercised the option.
So bittersweet, and then yeah, depending on what side of the table that you're sitting on. So two things right there that I
Right.
think was amazing was the customer experience that you allowed, because that is something extremely creative that I've heard, from you, Shiloh, was allowing someone not to, actually give them a credit card, but actually be, put on there so that they can show that they're using some credit, that it's improving their credit score, which is a phenomenal, just customer experience. And then the second part being, this person walked in to, a home with incredible equity, which is, like you said, had you just normally kept it as a rental, kept renting it out, that would have been great. When you lease optioned it, you locked in the purchase price. You kind of thought that, this was kind of a win-win. And so as they were paying, throughout the 3 years, what a great, hero I'm guessing that you are to that individual when that property came appraised back. I'm sure they were dancing on the table, but just wanted to say, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it was a win-win because we had just started with the lease option model. Okay, and so this was one of our earlier lease options. And so what happened was we locked it in for 200, but that property probably wouldn't have appraised for more than 180. Okay, so basically, if we had sold it at 180, then you take away another maybe I don't know, 8 to 9% for concessions and realtor fees and other closing costs, title fees and such. So you take that off, and now we have about 130 into it. Now we're getting back about 160 to 165. So we would have made a $30,000 to $35,000 profit on that deal if we had just flipped it. Okay. Now, if we had kept it and rented it, remember the city in which it was in is not a fantastic city. So I think that people would have probably put in a lot lower offer than the 350. So we probably wouldn't have been able to even sell it for that higher amount that it appraised at. But what we actually did is we worked with the buyer and we got it under contract at a higher amount at what we thought it would appraise for. And we did it very purposefully because when you're working with appraisers look at a couple of different things to determine value. Even though the only thing they're really supposed to look at is comparables, it's not exactly what happens. They look at, well, what do you have it under contract for? Okay, and price is really subjective, because if I have 5 properties that I can compare this to, I can determine, if somebody's coming in, they have it under contract to buy it for 350. The big question is, can I justify a $350,000 price? And so I'm looking at comparables to determine whether I can or I can't. And if I can, and if the bank is looking at me to come up with this price and they're already qualified, then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to value it at that 350 mark. Does that make sense? But if they had it under contract to buy it with me for 200, then he would have come down a lot lower, because there's no incentive for the appraiser to appraise it a lot higher than what it's under contract for. Does that make sense?
For sure.
So we actually changed the contract, the option contract that we had at the beginning, from the 200 to the 350 amount. And then after the appraiser came and appraised the property, we then adjusted it back down. And the reason we did that was for several reasons, because when he's going to get the loan and the appraisal comes in at a higher amount, now the bank is saying, okay, well, this property is worth this. And then they're only asking for a loan for a lower amount. Now that's going to look a lot better for them because they're getting a loan a lot less than what the value actually is. Does that make sense?
For sure. So on a
And
home
so,
buyer, if they're doing like a 3.5% down where they're at a 96.5% loan to value, in this case, what percent loan to value were they asking a loan for?
yeah, so they're going to be like way down, well below the 80%. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so all of that is beneficial to the buyer. So basically, so I have a partner in our real estate dealings and our different businesses that we have. And he specializes, he's the realtor, and he specializes in finding properties and determining value and all of that. What I specialize in is working with banks and getting money from either banks or private money lenders and being able to use that money to acquire properties. That's basically what I do a lot of. Okay. So understanding the way that the appraisers work and the way that they think, and then understanding how banks work and the way that they think has helped me be able to present things in a certain way in order to get the most beneficial rates, in order to get the most beneficial terms, and and the higher amounts based on the way that I present things to the bank.
So if someone wanted to potentially work with you, Shiloh, is it you guys have a certain amount of properties? Do they find you? Is it on a per property basis, or does someone say, I really am looking at doing lease options in your area? How, would they reach out to you individually and then you can kind of get them on an email list, or how exactly does that work?
So a lot of people actually do reach out to us, and they reach out to us in order um, to learn about lease options and things like that, or maybe they just have some money that they want to get a good return on. And so basically what we'll do, and yeah, so what we'll do is they can go ahead and reach out to me. They can send me an email, and then I put them on my email list. And as they're on my email list, I send them out basically, once a month, I'll send out all the deals that we're doing and the amounts that we're looking for in second position. Because what we'll do is we'll buy a property with hard money, and then we'll have somebody come in second position, and they lend us for the rehab and things like that. And then when we refinance the property, we pay off the hard money lender and the second position lender. Now, there's a couple of things that are really important to know when you're doing this, because being in second position can be risky. And it can be risky because you have somebody in first position that wants to get paid. And if the operator doesn't make sure that the person in first position is getting paid, the person in first position can foreclose on them. And then the person in second position has two options. One, they can go ahead and buy off the first position, which might be a lot of money, or they can just basically get foreclosed on and lose their money. So if you're ever going to lend in second position, you want to make sure that you're lending on a property that has enough equity that where the first and the second are less than about 80% of the value of the property.
It's a good tip.
So that's one thing. That's one thing that's really important, because we've never had anybody lose any money who has lent money to us on any of our deals. Okay. However, I've lent money to a couple of people and I've lost money, and one is still on the fence of whether I'm going to get it back or not. And from those experiences, I've learned how to work with lenders and help them feel a lot more secure because of the bad experiences that I had. But I quickly want to go over just a couple of other these deals that I talked with you about, and kind of show some of these other deals that we did. So we had one of our subcontractors that has worked with us for a few years. He does a fantastic job, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I'd really like to get into a property for my family and I." So I said, "Okay." And he's somebody that likes to buy things in cash. So he said, "I have about $50,000 ready to go and to lend, to give to you to help me get a property." He didn't want to get a mortgage or anything like that. So I found a property. I was able to get it, and I just found it on the MLS or on realtor.com. And then I was able to get that property. It was valued probably about 210 to 215. And I was able to get it for about 185, 190. So I didn't get it, nearly as discounted as I usually get, but he had $50,000 to put down in order to get into that property. And so that $50,000 was actually just an option fee. So a lot of times we only collect option fees of like $3 or $4 or $5,000. But this time he's giving me this $50,000 in order to get to this property. Okay. So we were able to go ahead and get this property, and we were able to do it to where we got a 75% loan on the deal, right? A 75, the loan that we got was 75% of what the value was. It valued about 200. We got a loan for 150. We brought his 50,000 in, which then helped us, buy the house basically. So we're in at $0. And then because of all of this, we gave him, a lower rental amount, and he was able to buy the property for a lower amount. So my partner and I each made only about $15,000 to $20,000 on this deal, but that's fine, because we still made some money, and we helped out one of the people that works for us, and he did a great job. And then over the next couple of years, he would just come in and say, okay, I have $80,000 now. I want to go ahead and put it down and adjust my loan, or not my loan, adjust basically my option strike price. I want to bring that down. And then I also want to be able to bring down my rent. So we took that, we adjusted the numbers, had him sign a new lease and option agreement, and then we did it again, and then he just paid it off in cash. And so one of our workers, who does a fantastic job, now has a home worth well over $250,000 that he was able to pay off in cash.
Pretty cool. And I imagine he was able to do improvements to the property or do whatever he wanted to, during that whole time, which probably, helped him. I'm assuming if he's a subcontractor, he's pretty skilled. That's what we found, is that the small business owners or the entrepreneurs that are really attracted to this lease option, there's like, if I can just get into a home, like watch what I can do type thing. There's some people that just want a nice turnkey home, and that's great. Whereas others, if you get them into a home that needs a lot of work, it's kind of the death of them, because they're not really planning for it to have, maybe some homeowner expenses. But when you have someone that's pretty handy that can lay flooring or paint or do some creative things, what a cool strategy. And you guys were just acting like a more creative bank, where he's like, I can't get a bank loan, but I just got all this cash that I don't know when it's going to come. And all of a sudden, once I have it, then I can put it down and just restructure things as I go.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's neat is he's reached out to me again and said, hey, I want to be able to get a couple more deals with you so that I can have them as rentals. So we're going to be working with him and helping him be able to get some rentals of his own. And then also that first guy that I talked with you about, that had that house in Eloy, he has a daughter that he really wants to get into one of our lease option properties. And so just this week, we've been working with him because we just finished one more house down kind of in that area. And so his daughter's coming and she's looked at it. And so we're in just the final negotiations of them being able to get another property. So what's really neat, when you work with people and helping them get a home, they treat you great because they're very grateful for the opportunity. And it really is kind of a partnership. We're working together in order to help you get a home. And I've already, allocated my profit on this property. Okay. So I got my profit on the property. We're good. And then it may appreciate a lot and you may be able to experience that appreciation. But right now I experience a lot of benefits from it as well. I don't have to take care of a lot with that property. The tenant buyer is going to go ahead and take care of the majority of all of those things, unless there was something that was big that we should have taken care of, but we didn't know about it when we were rehabbing the property. If it's something big like that, we'll come in and we'll take care of it. But any and all like minor things, the tenants take care of those things. And so the management of the property is very low. The turnover is very low. Maintenance is very low. So really, we're renting it out for a little bit higher than average rents. And we, are able to cut all of the expenses basically, except for the mortgage and the taxes and insurance. Those are really the only things that we really need to pay for. Everything else the tenant pays for. And so it really creates a lot more cash flow.
Wonderful. We had talked about potentially doing 2 separate podcasts because Shiloh and I could probably talk for 24 hours and he doesn't have that much time to dedicate towards this specific venture. But what I'm kind of wondering is, given your desire to help coach other individuals to do this, so essentially Shiloh's saying, hey, it's me and my business partner, we're doing, as much as we can, but you have kind of this heart to help others who are interested in just getting into real estate investing or to get into specifically lease options. And so maybe you want to just share a little bit on who has reached out to you to date and what you're who you're trying to help in that aspect for people that reach out and kind of see you as this authority figure on lease options. Because I see you on Bigger Pockets. You got your YouTube channel talking about raising private money, how to structure some of these lease option things, because it's kind of this gray area that, okay, I understand renting and tenant laws. I understand a bank and a mortgage, but this lease option or seller financing or contract for deed, it kind of gets weird. And depending on who you listen to, they'll tell you different things. And so you're essentially trying to help them either clear the air with some accountability or coaching. Do you want to, can you share a little bit more about that and who you've helped? Because I just happened to run into someone, 2,000 miles away that actually knew you, and we had lunch together. And so it was a pretty small world.
Yeah. Yeah, that is funny that you were able to run into him. And so that was great. So about 3 years ago or so, I was looking up for meetups in my area, and I saw one meetup in Arizona, and I thought, okay, I want to go to this meetup, but they hadn't determined a location. So I reached out to the guy because there was a lot of people wanting to go to the meetup, and they kept asking, where is it going to be? Where is it going to be? And the guy wasn't responding. And so I went up onto the chain of, that thread, and I said, hey, guys, I don't mean to hijack this, but because he hasn't responded, I'm going to go ahead and have this meetup over at my office. So I hijacked the thread, and then the guy did reach out and say, yeah, that'd be great. Let's have it at your office. So we had it at my office, and it was great. And so he was up there, and he basically just started saying, well, I just kind of thought that it'd be great if we just talked a little bit about real estate and stuff. And I saw him up there, and I could see that he was kind of floundering a little bit, and that the audience, the group that was there, about 20 or so investors, they were like, is this going to be everything that we're going to get here? And so because I've been teaching parenting classes for years, I'm used to going up and presenting in front of people. And so I stood up and I said, well, let me share you a little bit about some of the deals that we're doing. And so my buddy was there, my partner Jason was there, and so we started talking about some of the deals that we were doing and how we were structuring them, and we started to write some numbers on the board and everything. And so as we did that, the people started becoming a lot more interested. And so basically from then, I scheduled another meetup about a month later. And so we've just been doing meetups every month for about 3 years. And from those meetups, we've had people that have reached out and asked a lot of questions. And so as we've had them asking questions, I thought, I want to be able to help a lot of these people, but to be honest, it really does take a lot of my time to do that. And so I would answer questions here or there, but with people that have really wanted to learn more, we created kind of this training. It was just like a one-day training, but the truth was we weren't able to get as much in that training time as we really wanted to. So we were kind of struggling with that, and I decided, I'm just going to put out there that I do some coaching and kind of see what happens. So I kind of created this coaching program that is based on psychological principles of motivation. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the app Diet Bet, but Diet Bet is an app where you can pay in some money and you commit to losing 4% of your body fat or 4% of your weight within a 4-week period of time. So that may be anywhere between maybe, I don't know, like 6 to 8 pounds or whatever within 4 weeks. So what's interesting about that is as soon as I put money up for something, I now have a buy-in for it. And so I start working hard on trying to get that money back, because if you win the diet bet, you get your money back. Plus you get a portion of other people's money that didn't win. So you're now trying to get your money back plus a portion of other people's money. And so it's kind of this, it creates this competition. So I took those principles and I tied them into this coaching program. And so when people coach with me right now, the coaching program is $5,200. That's for a year-long coaching program. And it basically is a phone call every other week for a half hour. Now, in between the phone calls, you get homework that you need to complete. If you complete the homework that you're given in between the phone calls, then you get your money, then you get $100 back of the $5,200. So you're able to earn back half of the whole tuition. You're able to earn back $2,600. So what this does is it ties people into this idea of, I need to do my homework, because is it worth it for me to sit on the couch tonight knowing that I have my coaching call in the morning and watch this show when I haven't finished my homework? And the answer is no. I'm not going to sit here and have it cost me $100. So I'm going to go and I'm going to finish it. Does that make sense?
That is probably the coolest strategy that I've heard in a long time about coaching strategy or just general psychology, because a lot of people have a program where it's $1,500 or $5,000. You pay it, you're there for 2 days or 3 days. Then it's like, okay, then what? Then it's like, okay, I gave you all this value. Now go do it. And it's kind of like, okay, I paid for it. Yes, I'm incentivized to do it. But what you've kind of set up is this recurring check-in that's still this kind of monetized thing, almost on like a little drip campaign every 2 weeks for a full year. That's going to incentivize them beyond just the initial, okay, I've decided to make this decision. So I really like
Right.
that type of a strategy. That is really cool. So
Yeah.
is that the
And it's
therapist in
worked.
you, the psychologist, or is it just an idea that came up?
Well, both. So definitely as I work with people and studying motivation and how do I help somebody move from point A to point B, and also going through coaching myself. So I went through one of those expensive coaching programs. Okay. And the whole cost from start to finish, and it was for a year long, and there was several trainings and everything like that. It was much more in depth than the ones that I, provide. But it was about $70,000 for my wife and I to go through that whole training. But I learned a lot, but not only did I learn a lot, I made some great connections, which then opened up doors for me later on. And so those connections that opened up doors made me lots and lots of money. So for me, it was very much worth it. Now, I know a lot of other people are not either willing to do that, or there have been people that have done that and they paid that money and then they don't get a lot out of the program. And I think part of that is because it's looked at as this idea of a sunk cost. Once I put money into something, the money's gone. And now every day, whether I do something with it or don't, is a decision that I make. Meaning that once the money's gone and it's gone, if I don't do anything today, then that's just on me. I just didn't do anything. But I don't have a lot of this accountability piece that really tugs at me, keeping me doing it. Does that make sense? So having this program where you can earn back money every time you complete your homework really ties you in more to how it is for school, where you have due dates and you have to get things done because at the end you're going to get a grade. Well, at the end you're going to get this check back and you want it to be as big as possible. And the thing is, if you follow the program, you're going to be able to reach your goal. So everybody comes in with starting from a different place. Some people have a lot of money and they're ready to go and invest. Other people may not have that much money and they need to figure out what they need to do in order to get themselves to a place where they can invest. So everybody so far, and I'm working with 9 different coaching clients right now, everybody so far has come from a different place and they're starting from a different place and they have different resources. Identifying those resources right at the beginning and then coming up with a plan that's realistic for them that they can complete is very helpful, because then once they have that plan, okay, this is what I'm working towards. And then what I do is I just help them work towards their goal. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've seen some of the YouTube videos about, potentially getting your spouse on board with real estate, on kind of how to visualize this. And so a lot of great content on your YouTube channel, your, website, which is the blueequities.com page that we'll link in the show notes. So maybe what we'll do is we'll take a little pause, and I have them here where it's blueequities.com or the YouTube channel. What is the best way of getting a hold of you, Shiloh?
I'm on Bigger Pockets quite a bit. And I've, some people will reach out to me there, and when I'm able to, I'll go ahead and reach back out to them. That's one way. Also, going onto YouTube, watching my videos, commenting on those videos, subscribing to the channel, all of those things are definitely helpful for me. And so I'd appreciate people doing that. But those are some great ways of getting a hold of me. Basically, they can go on to Bigger Pockets, send me an email. They can go on to YouTube and ask me a question. And, with a question, I can also create another video that kind of answers that question. And that's how I've created some of the videos that are on there, is people have asked a question and then I'll go ahead and create a video around answering that question.
Wonderful. I can think of, so I'm doing a Joe McCall's Real Estate Investment Mastery podcast here in a couple of weeks. I think you'd be a really good guest on that one as well. So I'll make sure to see if Joe can have you on there, because I feel like you're more experienced than I am, in this stuff, and would be a really good success story. Just sharing some of those stories of how, yes, you as an investor are doing this, to make a profit, but some of the unique strategies that who you're helping, both from a tenant buyer coaches, yourself, business partners, probably just improving the community as a whole is a fantastic story to share for everything. So with that, there was a couple things that we had touched on. There was one other thing that you maybe want to talk about that I don't know that I hit on, where we talked about lease options. I don't know that we touched enough on, attracting private members or private money lenders, but also about just building a great partnership. Do you want to expand on just that? Because it sounds like you and Jason, or maybe you and the tenant buyers, or what exactly do you mean by a partnership?
So it is with my partner, Jason. And so he and I have done a lot of real estate together, and he's been kind of a mentor to me as well. So back in 2015, actually, no, I need to go back to 2010 with my very first property that I bought. So he was a neighbor of mine. And back then I started listening to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I thought, you know what, I think I'd like to get a rental property. And so because he was a realtor, I said, hey, will you help me find a property? And so he went and helped me find a property. And it was just off the golf course, 5-bed, 3-bath, about 2,500 square feet for $93,000. It was fantastic. Those prices were wonderful back in 2010. They are no longer that price now. So anyway, he helped me find that property, and we were in negotiations to buy it. And there was a family that lived in the neighborhood, but that had moved out of the neighborhood and then wanted to come back. And so I knew that family, and I approached the dad, and I asked him if he was interested in living in this property if I got it for him, if they would want to live there and rent it out for me. And they said yes. And so it actually worked out really well. I gave them a discount on rent if they would go in and basically paint it and put in new flooring. And because they had done a lot of construction before, it was easy for them to get the flooring they wanted and the paint colors that they wanted. So they went in and they took care of it, and it was fantastic. And so I gave them a discount on rent, and they lived there for like 4 or 5 years, and then they bought the property. And so that worked out really well. And it was actually with that money that I went and I paid for this course. But the question that you had was, the partnership with Jason and I. So that's where the partnership started. And then in 2014, the very end of that year, I reached out to him again and I said, hey, I want to do a flip with you. I want to do a deal with you. And he said, well, I have this deal coming up, and you can be the money lender on it. And the reason that I had money on that time was because I had opened up a large line of credit on my home in order to help me buy the commercial building that I have my therapy practice out of. So I had this money available to me. My money, it was a line of credit. And so I was able to take that and I was able to use it in order to be a hard money lender on this deal that he and I did together. And it was great. He earned about $40,000, didn't use any of his money, and I earned about $13,000 as a money lender on it. And it was great. And so from there, he and I did a couple more deals. And as we did a couple of deals, it just kind of worked out pretty well. And we are a really good partnership, and we work really well together, and he's a great friend as well. And so that partnership kind of just developed until we decided, okay, rather than just doing some of these flips, and we're seeing some of these profit margins getting smaller and smaller, let's try and do one of these lease options. Because we went to a lease option training at the end of 2016, and we saw the guy, he was writing the numbers on the board. And the guy that did the training, his name is John Burley. And so he's a big lease option guy out of Phoenix. He has probably thousands of lease options, and he does a lot of high-level trainings. And we just went to his 3-day training. And even in his 3-day training, he gives a lot of great information. And so it was like $300 for 3 days for my buddy and I to go to this training. So we go and we do it. And as we're watching him and listening to what he's saying and seeing all of the benefits of lease options, we thought, you know what, this would be great. So let's just try it. Let's try it with one and see what happens. Because he had been really hesitant of having rentals because he didn't want to be a landlord, didn't want to get calls in the middle of the night to come and fix things. So he'd really kind of avoided that. But at this moment in time, we decided, let's just try one of these lease options and see what happens. So we tried one and it worked out. And then we got another one, and then another one, and then another one. And so we were able to get about, I think it was like 17 lease options in 2017. And then they were just kind of working. And so we decided, let's go ahead and switch our model fully to just doing lease options. So over the next few years, we were able to accumulate we have now, I think, about 60 to 70 lease option properties. And then we expanded more out into some mobile home parks, and some multifamily. And so right now we built our portfolio up to about 170 properties. And so it's worked out really well. And it just kind of started with one property. Let's see how it worked. And it worked well. And so then we did another property and another property. And really, there's been some, a little bit of conflict along the way, not too much, but a little bit. And the ability to resolve conflict is very, very important when it comes to partnerships, because we started out a certain way where he had a lot more experience. And so the divide was, it was leaning more towards him. He was getting more. He had more of the experience and he was finding the properties and I was just bringing the money to the table. But over time, it became more obvious that the shift needed to go back to more of a 50-50, because I was starting to bring in a lot of value as well with finding other properties and bringing in the money. And he wouldn't really have been able to do as much without me, and I wouldn't have been able to do as much without him. So those are the great kind of partnerships. They're the partnerships where you can do more together than what each of you could do on your own. And so we were able to bring that in, and we were able to resolve conflict. And one of the ways of resolving conflict was just realizing, okay, so this, I don't like exactly how this is going, but let's take a look at the overall picture, because we can kind of be very nitty gritty on some of these small little details and find out, okay, this split should be a little bit different for this reason and that reason. But when we looked at it, we said, okay, we've been able to create millions of dollars together over the last couple of years. I think that what we got going is going so well that I don't really care as much about the little nitty gritty little details of who should get what a little bit more than the other, because our partnership will create more than us focusing on these little itty bitty details. Does that make sense?
For sure. The cliche that I always scoff at, because people say, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. And I was like, well, that's not very, a very proactive way of looking at something like a business, or even a marriage, right? Where I guess I could classify that as a partnership. Yeah, sure. You could say 50% of marriages end in divorce, but I don't want to be part of that 50%. So the mindset that you're looking at this, to not let, maybe each other get on each other's nerves, because I'm assuming the both of you don't have the exact same personality style and skill sets and quirks. So when somebody wants to go left and somebody wants to go right, how do you complement each other as opposed to fighting each other? And it sounds like you have a really great way of looking at that holistically.
I think we do, because there's times where I may want to buy a property and he's like, the numbers don't work very well on that property. And so I'm like, okay. And I might even actually be in contract to buy it, and I might lose earnest money on it, or we might lose earnest money on it. But it's good that we're working together, because sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't do. And that's what I've learned along this way, is because I might want to jump into a deal. He's like, no, that's not a good one. Or he might want to say, hey, look, this is a great deal, but it's way far out there. I'm like, dude, it's going to take our focus off of these things that we have right here that we want to build up. And so he then needs to let things go, and I need to let things go. And basically being able to do that really does help us stay more on course, because we have 2 points of reference that really kind of help us, again, stay better on course. So, and I have a YouTube video specifically on creating a good partnership, where he and I talk about the partnership we've created, and it's great. It's been a fantastic partnership over the last several years, and I foresee it going much longer. So there was one other thing that I wanted to share about it, and I think I forgot. Darn it! Oh well.
They'll have to watch your video to learn more about it, because I'm sure you touch base in it.
Watch my video.
So the easiest way, I'm assuming it's Shiloh Lundahl Real Estate Investor is probably the quickest way of looking at it. Otherwise, there's if I'm looking at your channel correctly, is the Improved channel on real estate investing, is that the official title?
Yes, so that's the official title. So basically, the reason that I started a YouTube channel is because I really like helping people. I like helping people improve their lives. And so that's why I call it the Improved channel, focused on real estate investing. The truth is, I actually have 4 channels, and I'm starting to build them up, but I just started last November. And so that's why I have, I don't have a lot of videos. It's because I just recently started. But basically, the other three channels are on the Improve Your Marriage channel, the Improve Your Parenting channel, and then the Improve Your Finances channel. So all of those things are things that I love to teach on. And as I counsel with couples, I help them obviously learn how to communicate better, but learn how to connect with one another and learn how to kind of go deeper from just the behavioral side of things to the emotional side, and then deeper down to their needs, that need level, which is where they can basically resolve their conflict. And if they don't go down there, they're not able to resolve conflict very well. And so I help a lot of couples. And so I wanted to create a channel where people could go and learn about some of the things that I teach in session. And I've had a lot of people in my therapy sessions that say, is there a book that I can read on this? Or is there something I can watch on this? And the truth is, I've gathered a ton of this information from so many resources that it's hard for me to say, here, go and read these 20 books, and then you should get what I'm trying to tell you. That's not effective. And there's no one book that's going to help them understand some of the things that I'd like to share with them. So I've created these channels in order to help them learn and be able to return and get these concepts over and over again. So I don't have any videos on my marriage channel yet, but I do have some videos on my parenting channel. And so I just put one in there. I got the little thumbnail as my son on this cell phone. And basically it was something like setting limits with your kids or something like that. I don't remember the exact title of it. Let me see if I can look it up. But basically that one I just put out there recently, and that was a really good one. I really enjoyed, making that one and sharing that one, because there's so many parents that really struggle when it comes to their kids and cell phone usage. So that one was really fun to create. And then I have my finance one as well. And I just posted one of my finance ones that talk about my first investment, which was investing in silver quarters, and how I made money doing that. And this was back in my early 20s. So there's just a lot of great things that I'd like to share with people, but I can't do it as well on that one-on-one because there's just not enough time. And so that's why these things is to get more information out there to more people and to be able to help people improve their lives. And that's really one of my core values, is to help people improve their lives. And so this is one format that I can use in order to do that.
Wonderful. So as we wrap up to the end here, what is one thing that I or your listeners can do that would help you, Shiloh? What's the number one constraint that you're looking for? Is that maybe subscriptions on the YouTube channel? Is that private money? Is it people looking to sell their home? Because you do so much and you're adding so much value into different pieces that I imagine you got this big mind map, or I imagine a whiteboard on your office with kind of the selling the homes, the lease options, the coaching, the YouTube channel, let alone being, a father, being a dad and doing these other stuff. So if there was one thing that's kind of your number one constraint right now, what do you think it is?
So another fun thing with the YouTube thing that we're doing is my partner, Jason, and I have a wager, basically. And we are trying to see who can get to 1,000 subscribers first. And so the company is going to pay for either his family or my family to go on a vacation upwards of $6,000 to the person that gets to 1,000 YouTube subscriptions first. So the thing they can do right now to be of help to me would be definitely to go and subscribe to my real estate YouTube channel, but they can subscribe to the other ones as well. But it's just the real estate YouTube channel that we have this competition going. So that's the thing that they can do to help out, help me out with the most. But I know that if they do that, they're going to get a lot of really good content. So, and they can post questions in there, and I can create videos trying to answer those questions. And so that's one way of interacting with me where they can get a lot of value.
Fantastic. And that is the whole intent of the podcast here today, is we want to help really just share educational piece, because I feel like the tenant buyers or overall, individuals trying to get into lease options, that there's maybe this used car salesman type of approach of almost like a rent to own furniture, where you can get people that totally capitalize on individuals where it's like, oh, sure, just give me, 10 grand here and you can get your bank ready and, get your bank squared away in like 3 months. Right. And then of course, that's never the case and it always takes longer. And so the fact that you're, even adding people onto your credit card, giving them equity, you have all of these different things going on. Of course, it's not going to go perfect 100% of the time, but just the fact that you're doing it, for a business, trying to help people out the right way is really the intent of, the podcast in general, is to just, share education, awareness, who this is for, who this is not for. You've done a fantastic job explaining that, sharing kind of a little bit about your story. And so if anyone wants to check out with you, check out the show links below on kind of how to get a hold of Shiloh. Check out his YouTube channel for sure. I know I'm subscribed to it. So from there, anything else, Shiloh, that I hadn't asked you that you wanted to touch base on before we jumped off?
One thing that you'd mentioned is this idea of sharing. And just recently, I went to this mastermind group. And so I'm part of a couple of masterminds, and I'm part of one that's kind of a pay into mastermind group, and it's an expensive mastermind group. But as I am there, I'm able to connect with people that are not only high net worth individuals, but people that do things on higher levels and higher scales. And you'd mentioned that saying that Dave Ramsey talks about, the only ship that the only ship that doesn't sail well is the partnership that one will sink, or whatever he says. When I was there at that mastermind group about a week and a half ago, there were so many people that will create LLCs with each other, and they'll do a business deal. And I mean, there's a lot of people that had like 6 or 7 different businesses with a lot of different partners. And they were doing very, very well, not only financially, but they were able to connect and network with so many great people and be able to do awesome charities and all of these things. And it's just a different mindset. When you are able to get to a place where you look at the bigger picture and you can connect with other people that can see the bigger picture, you can create some great partnerships. And if you're not going to be a very good partner, it's going to get around. People aren't going to want to partner with you. But if you are a good partner, that also gets around. And then you can partner with awesome people and do some awesome things. And through that, the reason that I bring this up is what you were talking about with the idea of sharing. So this idea of you want to share all your way, or you want to share your way all to, I keep saying it wrong, but you want to share your way to the top. Basically, as you share with more people, you're going to be able to share all the way to the top. And so that's just one last thing that I wanted to share with you that I've learned recently. Because before I used to be, a lot more reserved, but now I'm willing to share a lot more, because I find that providing value to other people comes back to me as well. So thanks, man. Thanks for letting me come on your podcast. It was great. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that's a great way to end it. If you want to learn more about the power of sharing, I would recommend Bob Burg's book, The Go-Giver, where that it's just such a nice short story. And I think it's even free on YouTube right now, where you could just listen to it, where he kind of narrates this idea of, sharing to elevate yourself and others. And so what a great way to end the podcast, Shiloh. Thank you again for coming on with us today.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciated it.
All right. Take care.